Can I ask a budget related question?
Yes, please.
For folks at universities, are there any stipulations around matching or indirect costs associated with the budget?
Excellent question. Um, yes, so we do not require matching, and we actually prefer not to do it because it requires all kinds of tracking when you do matching funds. So we don't require matching. If part of your project is funded from somewhere else, it's good to explain that in the proposal so that when reviewers look at it, they'll be like, well, they're just asking to do this piece, but how is that, the rest of it going to be taken care of? They'll want to know that they'll want to have confidence that the project will be able to succeed. So any additional funds for the project, it would be really good to explain those. And then indirect is available to institutions who have a federally negotiated rate. It's a maximum of 10% of total direct costs, which is typically a lot less than what institutions have as a federally negotiated rate, but we're only allowed to provide 10%. If you're an organization, a nonprofit, I know you're asking about institutions particularly, but if you're a nonprofit or an individual and you do not have a federally negotiated rate, not an individual, but if you're an organization, you can ask for de minimis indirect, which is based on a modified total direct cost. That's actually explained in our budget template that we have available on our website. You'll see that when you go into the call for proposals and look at that all. Vander, I don't have my chat up, but maybe could you put the call for proposals in the chat? Probably might have already done that. And
Absolutely. And we've got a question in the chat. Can you provide more information about our review criteria?
yes, indeed. So in the call for proposals, we have each of the questions listed for the that we need for you to answer in our online submission system. And each question has the review criteria for that question. So you can see exactly what we're looking for. We have review teams that made up of farmers and agricultural service providers and researchers and educational professionals and a mix of people that will read the proposals and review them. And they'll be looking to each of these review criteria, and they'll also be looking overall at the proposal as a whole and how it relates to our outcome statement. And I got to get an outcome statement slide up on this presentation, but maybe Vander, you could provide that also in the chat. Because it's really important that the projects relate to our outcome statement and that they will impact farmers in the Northeast in a way to improve their sustainability. If the project is successful, if it's that it will be investigating an opportunity or a problem or an issue that is currently a need for farmers.
We've got a question in the chat. Our team doesn't work with farmers. We are farmers. Can a farm working with other farmer partners lead the proposal?
You can only do that if you provide a service to farmers and you are in some way an agricultural service provider, so that you typically work with other farmers. As a farm and as a farmer, we don't typically work with other farmers, but you want to partner with other farmers and lead a proposal, you would need to apply for a farmer grant, and those will be available in the fall. Or those will be available for applications in the fall for funding the following March. Any other questions before I just move on to some other aspects of the proposal, of the application system? Right, so we talked about, we just had the question about if you're a farmer, can you apply? Typically, only if you, like I said, only if you are a service provider in some way. That's why we have farmer grants as well, to allow an opportunity for farmers to apply like that. So, and then any entity that works with farmers could be a nonprofit, could be extension, a college or university, could be a for-profit business like a consultant, could be a municipality organization, or like a county conservation district, Department of Ag, federal employees, NRCS, any of the those programs. We also do encourage projects submitted from or in collaboration with underserved communities, and we consider that to be BIPOC, women, LGBTQIA+. We encourage from applications from minority serving institutions, such as the historically Black colleges and Hispanic serving institutions and tribal colleges and universities, and tribal organizations in general, and any other organization that works with or supports underserved communities. We like to see those proposals, and reviewers do weigh that in their scoring of the proposals. Grant proposals must address at least one of the themes of sustainable agriculture, which is the reduction of environmental or health risks, improved productivity, conservation, could be soil, water quality, any natural resources, enhancement of employment in farm communities, or improvement of quality of life for farmers, their employees, and the farming community. Those are the types of things we're looking for. And the most important thing is that the results of the project will benefit farmers in the Northeast. So there's a wide range of topics. Just for examples, if you're looking for examples of topics, that we've done aquaculture, bees, pollination services, crop production, could be anything having to do with crop production, could be pest management, nutrient management, variety trials, season extension, livestock, anything having to do with livestock, like season, pasture management, anything having to do with the animals. As I said, nutrient management, composting is a popular topic. Business management, marketing, online ordering, things having to do with farmers market, direct sales, wholesales, anything having to do with business management, natural resources, like I said, and that could be, water, soil, energy efficiency. It could be looking at a new way to heat your greenhouse, that sort of thing. Education, we fund educational projects, so you could provide a curriculum, you could provide a new curriculum, or a curriculum that that is already established, but apply it to a new audience, or maybe some sort of strategies, or like a demonstration of how to use a tool like a soil steamer or something to that effect. And you will want to, when you're providing an educational project, you also want to try to assess the impact it's having. So maybe do surveys at the beginning and at the end. And we also fund product testing or product development. If there's a prototype that you want to develop and you want to work with a farmer and then try it and see how it works and tweak it and all that, but those are the kind of projects we'll fund. You are required to have a farmer partner, and that farmer partner has to meet our definition of a farm, which means that they have a minimum of $1,000 per year in sales of produce produced on their farm, or the equivalent in some other, like some communities they don't actually sell, but they the value of the produce is there for consumption by others. So the farmer just must meet the definition of a farm and be involved in the project. You can duplicate your research on a research farm. So if you're part of an institution that has a research farm, you can duplicate your research on that research farm. But unless that farm actually sells the produce, you need to have a specific. Did somebody have a question? All right, I'll just keep going. That would be good if the farmer
I have
partner
a quick question on that.
Yep, Jennifer.
If a farm is selling a service, but a farming service, so for example, like a grazing service, does that count as, will that qualify them as a farm?
If they are selling a grazing service.
Like goatscaping?
So goatscaping. No, it has to be produce produced on their farm. Goatscaping. That's a good question. I need to look into that. If you could provide us with your email, you can email me directly, candace.huber@ubm.edu. You'll find my email all over the place on our website, or there's also another contact email there. Maybe Vander, you could pop that in the chat, and I'll get back to you on that specifically, because goatscaping, that is something that is like you're raising the goats.
Yes.
So I would think it would, but I would just want to double check on that.
Okay, thank you.
So more about the farmer partner, they should have experience in the topic area that or it's helpful if they have experience in the topic area that you're working with them on. If they don't, if you have all the knowledge and experience that's needed for it, or otherwise it's good to have other collaborators that may be able to provide something, like say you're going to use GIS in your project, and you don't have a lot of experience in GIS, nor does the farmer. You might want to have a collaborator who has that experience. Definitely, farm needs to be located in the Northeast, and the farmer will need to provide a letter of commitment, which will describe their knowledge and also and describe their farm a little bit, and also express what they understand as their role in the project. As I said, you're going to need to develop a budget, a realistic budget. So it's a good idea to put a lot of thought in this and determine what exactly you'll need to do the work proposed. Because sometimes people underestimate, or they don't think about the little things. So if you think about all the little things, and that it adds up. So we want you to make sure that you're going to have everything you need to be able to do your project. By working on this budget and making it as complete as possible, it's helping you set up for success. So just provide your best estimate for each of the expenses. If you need to, call somebody up and say, how much do you sell these steaks for? And then put them in the budget. And then, we need to know exact numbers, quantities, and price per quantity. So we know how you arrived at the number. When it comes time for invoicing, obviously there's room for a little bit of flexibility. Prices go up, or you need to move a little from here to there to be able to cover. So that can all get worked out. But as far as the budget goes, we need to know how you're coming up with the numbers that you're coming up with. All the expenses must be incurred during the contract period, so that the expenses will not be able to start until August 1st, which is when the awards will be announced, and that's the start date. The contract sometimes takes another month or so to actually execute, but you can start you can invoice for expenses as starting August 1st. And then all your expenses have to be invoiced before the end date of the contract. And again, the maximum amount you can apply for is $30,000. Are there any questions at this point? Otherwise, I could talk a little more specifics about budget. I'm going to just keep going, but again, feel free to interrupt me if you have a specific question. So what is SARE Fund? What kinds of things can you put in your budget? We fund personnel. We encourage you to ask for a reasonable wage, and also to make sure you consider how much time it's going to take for you outside of your normal operation to put into the project itself.
Hey, Candace.
All of the expenses must be specific to the project. Yep.
We've got a question in the chat from Erica. What is a sub-award? Thanks for letting me interrupt you.
Sorry, yeah. Yeah, good question, good question. So a subaward is when, if you have a, I'm not sure where, if I used it, did I use it in a specific context? Because there has a couple of meanings. We get our funds from the USDA. They run through the University of Vermont. And so then so that's the prime award. We get like a big award from USDA, and then we meter out the grants. And so there's the prime award, and then there's sub awards that UVM makes to organizations. Within your own budget, you can have a sub award. So if you are going to work with another organization that's going to do part of the project, you could put them as under sub award. They will need to provide a budget for the work that they're going to do. We'll need to know, exactly the scope of work they're going to do, and also get their commitment. They'll have to sign a commitment form. But they can create their own budget, and you can add that to yours, so that you can have a sub award within your project if you're going to work with another organization. A little complicated, but I think that might answer it. Let me know if you have any other questions on that. So we provide funds for not hourly, but for wages, whether it's hourly or like a full-time in institutions. That's the measure they use. All the materials and supplies that you're going to need, again, that are outside of your normal operating expenses. Travel, if you want to travel to present results, or if you need to travel back and forth to field sites. Printing and publications, if you want to, if you're going to be doing outreach and you're going to need funds to be able to print documents or submit publications, journal articles, that sort of thing. Or if you need funds for web page development or some sort of web digital development of a publication. Other direct costs we fund are equipment rentals, or land, or like greenhouse use. Testing and analysis, those are services from other companies. We're going to send something off to have the service provided. Consultants, fees, and travel. So if you're working with a farmer, that's where you would put their any payments to them. And we really highly encourage people to make sure that farmers are paid for their time and expenses and everything that they do for the project. So we encourage people to provide a stipend or hourly wage for the farmer, that partner or partners. You can work with more than one partner in your budget. And then any like travel to conferences also, and expenses associated with presenting your results at a conference. Any question? No, thank you for providing that budget template, Vander. Okay, so what is SARE not fund? Some of these screens, okay. We don't provide funds for structures or major renovations, no like capital expenses, so you can't like you can't ask for any startup costs to start a new enterprise or that sort of thing, or build a barn. We won't pay for the purchase of farm equipment, like tractors or something that you would normally need in your operation. We can't pay for any motorized vehicles. We typically don't pay for cell phones or cell phone charges. If there's a specific like phone type of maybe you've got like monthly meetings with your farmer, and there's some software or something that you want to use, we could pay for that, but we won't pay for cell phones. Food is not an allowable expense unless it is part of a training or a meeting where there's not an opportunity for people to leave to go get their own food. We won't pay for promotional giveaways. Again, we won't pay for operating expenses that are normally part of your operation or purchases made before or after the grant contract period. So the timeline for these partnership grants is.
Hi, Candace. I've got something for you. We just wrapped up our poll on the budget justification narrative. So before we got too far from it, we had more curiosity around the narrative part of the budget justification. So do you think you could talk a little bit about how that section of the budget justification and narrative works?
Yes, absolutely. I believe there's a link to the budget template in the. I guess I don't know if I can bring it up. That will show you where it's a spreadsheet and you've got a column for, can you see that? Or are you still looking at my PowerPoint? Can you see the budget template?
We're still on your PowerPoint, but it's linked in the chat. So if anybody wants to, you can open it up and take a look.
Yeah, if you can open it up, you'll see that there's a column for the item name. That's the first column. So like under personnel, you might put, Sandra Jones, the project leader, and then there's a column for the narrative justification of the expense. And this is where you're going to describe what it is you're asking for and why you need it for your project. So for this person who's leading the project, you would say, managing all aspects of the project, including project setup, budget, reporting, all that sort of things. Or say it's a piece of equipment and you're putting it in, you would put seed driller, and then in the justification you would say necessary to sow the cover crop, not something we have in our normal operation. You want to make sure that we understand, reviewers understand that it is an item or an expense that you need for your project, why you need it for your project, and also that it's clear, if it could be wishy-washy, that it's clear that it's not something that you would normally have. Then that's more for the more expensive items, like, maybe $800 and above. You want to make sure that it won't be questioned as something that's part of your normal operation. So that's what justification, that's where justification comes in. Hope that's helpful.
Awesome. Thank you.
I've lost my PowerPoint.
We've got a.
Is there an average?
Yep, you got it.
Yeah, is there an average per person amount that SARE allows for meals associated with training and workshops? No, there's not an average per person amount. You can call around and see if it's just like water and cookies, then maybe, that would be one thing, but if you're going to be doing a full lunch, it might be more. So it's really based on what you're going to need. And you can estimate what a typical meal would cost. So we don't have any average per person, but people are usually pretty good about estimating what it could be per person. You can always call a caterer or just look up online some prices. All right, let's see. We went through all that. Went through that. Okay, yeah, we're on the timeline. So again, the proposal deadline is April 9th at 5 p.m. Proposals need to be submitted online at projects.sare.org, and all that information is in the call for proposals. It's very clear in the call for proposals what you need to, what the questions are and how you, what we're actually looking for in those questions, including the review criteria. And there's also a link to a Word document if you would like to prepare your answers offline, because there are word limits for most of the responses. So you can do all that offline if you want to, and then submit it online. You want to make sure you've got all your attachments ready to go. So any letters from collaborators and from your partner farmers, you're going to want to make sure you have those ready to go and your budget ready to go to upload. Everything needs to be uploaded and submitted by 5 p.m. So leave some time for technical difficulties and challenges that can come up at the last minute. Definitely recommend getting a head start and not waiting until the last minute. Proposals are then reviewed between April and July, And then the awards are announced by email in late July, and the contracts are issued in August, and the contract start date is August 1st. Any questions at this point?
Real quick, Candace, I'm just gonna let folks know, I tossed a poll question in there that's a little bit, that's a short answer, so I'm gonna keep that open for a couple more minutes here, so everybody has a chance if they're typing something up to throw something in there, so don't feel like, I know the other polls, I've been trying to keep them opening and closing, just to it's fun to click on stuff, right? So just a little bit we'll be going through those, and I'm just so delighted. This is going so wonderful. I'm so glad to see everybody and hear all the questions, and you know, this is just such a great opportunity for us as a Northeast sustainable agriculture community, for us to build connections as a group and to grow together. So we really thank you for coming out and participating and being so honest and open with your questions, because it helps us grow as an organization and it helps all of us build a stronger network in the Northeast.
Yeah, and this particular question, I'm just got another couple of slides here, and then Vander can shoot me some of those questions from there, and we can chat about that stuff. So tips for submitting a strong proposal. First, you want to consider the match between SARE and you. So you want to look at that outcome statement, think about your project, and does it apply to what we're doing, what we're looking for. You want to definitely read the call for proposals, read it all, and follow the call for proposals. And you want to start, as I said, start preparing your proposal early. Prepare it offline, and you want to I say review proposal before entering it into the online system, but really what I think I mean there is you want to make sure you review it before you actually hit that submit button. And we often recommend that you have somebody else appear, or maybe the farmer partner that you're working with, or somebody else, one of your collaborators, review your proposal. There's an option in the online system for you to send the link to somebody so that they can look at the proposal, and just have them, you know, look at it for clarity, and that you're answering the questions, and that you're not, you know, they're including everything you need to include. So we highly recommend that. You want to write, when you write your proposals, you want to write it with reviewers in mind. And so you keep your writing clear and straightforward. A lot of times, it's actually great to avoid jargon. And if you do use any acronyms, make sure you type out what they are the first time you use them. Because reviewers will have a broad understanding of agriculture. They each have their own expertise, and they may not know a lot about your particular topic. So make sure that you explain things in a way that explains any of the details about your topic. You don't want to make assumptions that reviewers know some of the more technical stuff. You want to, again, develop a realistic budget and request funds only for allowable expenses. And again, remember the attachments. Give yourself plenty of time to get those in line. We have resources on our website. This is our web address, and the call for proposals is there. And there's also in the call for proposals, you'll find that link to the proposal prep worksheet. That's what we call that Word document, where you can prepare your answers offline. And there's also the URL to the online submission system, which we call our grants management system. And then on this web page, you'll also find the budget narrative and justification template. So that's the spreadsheet you can use to lay out your budget. A grant commitment form, which is required from your organization. An authorized official from your organization needs to sign it so that we know that they are supporting the project and going to take fiscal responsibility. And we also have the definition of a farm on that web page. We have a document that provides information. If you're just not clear if this person would qualify as a farmer, you could go and check that out.
Hi, Candace. I have a chat question for you from Jennifer. if a farmer already partners with a nonprofit organization on other initiatives and the farmer plays a volunteer leadership role with that organization, can the farmer still partner with that nonprofit?
Yes, yep, you can partner with that nonprofit. Somebody else from the nonprofit needs to be if you're gonna be in the farmer role, somebody else from the nonprofit needs to be the project leader and be the one who applies for the grant.
Thank you.
I have my contact information here. I am going to, I think, Emma already put my email in the chat. You can visit our website if you want more information to look at more of our programs. We've got other programs, as I said earlier. We've got the Farmer Grant program, which is those applications are due in the fall. We've got larger grant programs that you might want to look into. And you can find all that on our website at northeastsare.org. But I'm going to stop screen sharing right now so I can see folks. And any other questions, particular questions? I could also talk a little bit about what happens after you get an award, but I just want to make sure we are answering all the questions.
Well, we've got a lot of good things that people submitted to the what are you hoping to learn today, but I also want to make sure that we're giving space right now. So we're going to take a moment of, so if anybody wants us to hop in here with a question before we dive into that. As I love part of these is just kind of making sure that we stop talking for a moment.
Vander, maybe you could share also where everybody is from, like throw out some of the states.
Absolutely. So I'm gonna I'll put up the answers to that poll, and then I will start reading off these questions for that. So our first question was how best to incorporate farmer partners.
That's a good question. So if you are an agricultural service provider, hopefully you do work with farmers. And if you have an idea, I would say, think about your idea, think about the farmers that you work with and how and if any of them have any expertise in the topic, or maybe they have the right kind of situation that would fit with your project that you have in mind, like the right kind of commodities that they're focusing on or practices, or the right kind of soils or layout, whatever might work for you. And then approach them and ask them if they'd be willing to work with you on this project. And, you can explain to them that, you would pay them for their time and that sort of thing. But hopefully you're working with farmers that could be candidates for you to work with.
Can I follow up, because that was my question? So
yeah.
I'm at Binghamton University in New York. We are not a extension, we're not the land grant institution for the state of New York. Obviously that's Cornell up the street, or up there many miles away. And so as a university entity, my research directly relates to agriculture, but I don't have farmer friends. And so I'm just sort of trying to find, like, how should I make friends?
Yeah.
Can I offer a quick suggestion?
Yeah, I have some information for you. Go ahead.
I mean, so for me, I go about it two ways. One is looking for whether you're going to a market or you're engaging with farmers in other ways, just seeing if there are problems that keep coming up. That might take a year or two to kind of get a feel for what that is, but usually you can start to identify a couple that are repeated problems. I've found that anything business management related, especially if you get into a specific sector, there's probably almost always a need there to refine business management practices. The other way is if anybody, any farmer or any connection, just start asking them and also ask them for other people that they could recommend you talk to, and just kind of start to work through their networks to understand what they're experiencing.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so also partnership grants can be used for needs assessments. If it's something that will lead to a bigger project. But oftentimes there's a project and it won't be clear about the demonstrated need. So if you can do some sort of needs assessment before you apply, that's really helpful. And like Ben was saying, you know, you can go out, you can go to farmers markets and stuff, or you can go to just regular markets, stop by farms, talk to farmers and ask them, you know, what's your need around this issue that I'm seeing, that I'm investigating, that I'd like to pursue.
Candace, quick follow-up. If someone has a farmer grant, can they be the farmer partner in a partnership grant?
Yes.
So yeah, then I would tag that on, and I'm going to drop a link here in the chat. So if you go to projects.sare.org and you click on the search projects button, you can search for farmer grants that are active in the Northeast, and those farmers have or are currently working with Northeast SARE. They kind of know what's going on. You still need to be the leader of the project, but that can be a really good way to find farmers that are familiar with how we work, and maybe I like to think they'll be excited. They would be excited. You know, I think we do a great job. And we got friends making it in the chat too.
Yeah. Amber, there's somebody in the chat who. There we go. Excellent. Other.
So another question that we had and I'm sorting these by the ones that were most question-like, so I will get to everything here, but I want to make sure that those more pointed ones. So someone asked, they wanted to find out whether or not their project idea fits your call, and we can totally talk about that generally. But if you wanted to share a little bit more with us, I'm sure that Candace can answer that question directly.
Yes, I'm happy to answer questions about specific topics and whether they're eligible, but I also understand, you know, there's a sense of confidentiality. Maybe people aren't ready to share that, and if you're always welcome to email me directly, and we can talk one-on-one about it as well. So if somebody wants to ask a question about a specific topic or topic area, feel free.
And if you had an answer to the poll, any answer to the poll earlier about commodities or practices, that counts. Oh, bye, Ben. So we have another question. Is reviewing literature to identify heritage practices for agroforestry compatible? Is that a good?
Wait, say that again. Is reviewing literature for
Is reviewing literature to identify heritage practices for agroforestry, and to me, I'm like, heritage practices and agroforestry both count on their own. So yes.
Well, they do, but the literature review is great, and it's a way to obtain information, but reviewers would probably look for a little bit more than that. You'd want to explain, are you going to develop a guide to these practices? Are you going to develop like a database? And how will this help farmers? What's the industry you're targeting? And how will this help them improve things, whether it's productivity or just access to resources? Maybe it's the community that doesn't have the access to the resources, or you want to make sure you really develop it into an actual project that's going to impact farmers. Yeah, a little bit more, have some sort of aspect of assessing. So you would want, for something like that, you'd want to have a strong outreach component. So you're sharing those results, as well as maybe trying to assess who's using the results and how are they using them. So just some ideas, but I mean, the topic is definitely eligible. those are just tips to make it a more of a competitive proposal.
Just leaving some space here in case anybody had any particular follow-ups on that. Another kind of direct question out of the hoping to learn today was, can we share an example of research conducted under a SARE contract that transitioned into practice? Our team has goals we would like to research the feasibility of with the hopes of moving forward with specific initiatives based on what's learned.
Yes, I think I'm understanding the question. But we just recently had a project wrap up that looked at, oh my gosh, I'm blanking out on, it looked at a specific practice of clover as a living mulch system. And, from that, they were able to, share that they had successful results with using clover as a living mulch. And then they were able to share those results, and they've actually started a nonprofit organization from that, where they're actually helping other farmers develop these systems, put into place these systems. That is that, I think that, does that answer seem like it answers the question? Is that a good example? Did I miss something from the question? There are a lot of really very exciting projects. And if you, again, you can go to the database, as Vander pointed out before, and you can just noodle around and put in keywords and stuff, and maybe in the topic that you're interested in, and put in the region or the state maybe that you want to look into, and look at projects that we've funded, and there you can find some really fun ideas and see how the reporting is, and what it's like and what the outcomes are.
Yeah, I'm just pulling in
Yeah,
a question from the chat from Ariel. Does the partner have to be a nonprofit or institution, or could it be an LLC or sole proprietorship, providing said business is providing an ag service?
Definitely can be an LLC or a sole proprietorship. You know, we often have people who are consultants, individual consultants, like a crop consultant or somebody who, and they would apply and work with a partner farmer. So yes. Any other questions?
I am fairly new to New York and the Northeast grants in general, and I was curious, is this something that's offered every year, regularly, for a certain number of years? How likely would these be available in the future?
Fairly likely, because that's my job, so hopefully it'll continue. But yes, we're on a yearly cycle. We did pause last year, but I don't anticipate that happening again for a long time. So every year we provide all our grants. It's all in a yearly cycle, so things keep rolling along. So if for some reason you don't get to apply this year, you can apply next year. The larger grants have a little bit of more of a stretched out timeline because they require pre-proposals and then the full proposal. But the farmer partnership and graduate student grants are what we call our smaller grants. And they require just one full proposal, which is either in the farmer grants are in due in November with awards in March, and the partnership and graduate student grants are due in April with awards in August.
And I am always excited when we see across, because I'm a communications person, I see things across programs, and we do see people who come in, like our graduate student program is open right now. We've got this in our farmer grant, and people develop some things in a one grant proposal, and they come up with an idea, and then they end up like in our novel approaches grant program, which is a much higher cap and really develops really cool new tools. So there is some pathway for growth through grants, and this is a great program to first way into Northeast SARE grant writing.
Yes, that's a really good point, and especially from an institution where you've got a lot of capacity. So starting with a partnership grant, cap $30,000, you know, it's not a lot, but it is a lot for a small nonprofit to manage and to be able to, you know, pay the expenses and do the reimbursements and all that. But for institutions, it's a little easier to do that. And so, you know, you could, once you've done your partnership grant, you could build even on that same partnership grant, do something completely different and move to one of our larger grants where it's a little bit of a longer timeline, but and a lot more involved in the work that you do. Any other questions? If not, I could just briefly talk about what happens if you get an award. So if you are awarded a grant, as I said, the contract period starts on August 1st, but it takes usually a month, I would say, you know, a few weeks at least to get the contract in place. We refine your budget, we get it all the T's crossed and I's dotted, and then move it up forward, and it has to go through UVM, and they send it to you and your organization for signature, and it goes back. And then you can, once the contract is in place, you can submit an invoice for expenses or start submitting invoices for expenses. So as you go along, you would want to keep invoicing just so that you can have that money flowing in. And then there are annual reports due, annual progress reports in January. We ask for an annual progress report while your project is active. So just so that we know things are on track, and that they're moving along, help you if you have any issues, like if at any time you feel like you need to reallocate some money in the budget because something came up, or you have any sort of challenges, or maybe you need more time for your project, we can work with you on all that. And then at the end of your project, a final report is due and your final invoice. And then it's done. People ask, you know, what kind of commitment do you have? Is there after the project is done? And it's like really not anything. Your project is in the SARE database with your final report. Your contact information is in there. So if somebody's looking up your topic and they come across your project and they might have more questions on it, you might have somebody reach out to you to ask for more information. But other than that, once the award is finished, our commitment to each other is done. But we're always also here we welcome any updates on your projects. We can always add stuff to your report if you had another publication come out of the work or something, or you had some interesting results come up or something. So we welcome any follow-up from you to us, but we don't have any expectations at that point. So that's basically, we help you with the award administration. So any challenges that come up, like changes in the budget or in the timeline, but you are responsible for the project itself, and we trust that you will do your best. Anything else? Coming up towards the end of the year. Again, people can feel free to contact me at any time. The email address is again on the call for proposals. Again, we recommend that you don't wait too long to get things together. We are March 13th, so we're getting close, 3 to 4 weeks. So it's important to get on it at this point, and I'm happy to help at any time. You can email me, that's the best way to reach me. And if we need to talk by phone or conference video, I'm happy to do that as well. Great, so if there's no other no other questions, we're gonna be compiling the questions that we had today and posting them on our website along with a recording of today, just so if you want to come back to see anything, or check on any of the responses, there'll be like FAQs from all these questions. So, and we have that from our last Q&A, which was a week ago. So, if you want to just check that out, that might be helpful too. Thank you, everybody, for coming. We appreciate all the questions and all the participation. And I hope that those of you who made connections will get hooked up there. And looking forward to seeing all of your names in the applications.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks so much, all.
Thank you all.